What's going on? It's Kevo Bato, and let me ask you a quick question really quick. On the left side of your screen is RetroBat, and on the right side is Batocera. Look at your screen and tell me, can you tell the difference in the two? I'll wait. No, I won't. Shut up. You can't tell the difference between the two. You need more information. You have to go into the settings or see the RetroBat collection. You don't know the difference between the two just by looking at it. So that's where today's video comes in. We're going to dive in deep into RetroBat and Batocera. We're going to test out boot times, load times, which one's easier to install. We're going to compare and contrast these two amazing emulation setups, and we're going to answer the ultimate question: which is better? Are we Batocera boys for life, or is it time to evolve into RetroBat men? But you know me, let's not waste any more time, and let's get right into the video. So this is the beginning of the video. Let's start it off with a game. Now, similar to what I just asked you in the intro, can you tell me, is this RetroBat or Batocera? I want you to leave it in the comments below. I'm not going to tell you now. We'll talk about it in the comments section. I just want to know, is there really a way that you can figure it out, or are we just all BSing? So is this RetroBat or Batocera? Leave it in the comments below. Anyways, with that out of the way, we're going to go ahead and talk about the similarities between RetroBat and Batocera, because they have a lot of similarities. And before we get into the pros and cons of each setup, we might as well talk about what makes them so similar. So just a few things that are similar about RetroBat and Batocera. They both run Emulation Station. They both use RetroArch as the backbone. The main core of everything that's going on is RetroArch. Now, along with RetroArch, they both have similar standalone emulators. Now, the emulator section is where they start to differ, because in RetroBat, you can kind of go in and customize which version of which emulator that you get. You can go and get a completely different emulator off the internet and, put it in the RetroBat files and have that load as the standalone. But they both use Emulation Station. They both use RetroArch, and they both use very similar standalone emulators. Another thing very similar about them, they both use similar, if not the exact same setup for their file system. Obviously, RetroBat runs on Windows, so it doesn't look the same. Once you get into your RetroBat directory, you've got your BIOS, you've got your saves, you've got system, and you've got obviously your ROMs. So a lot of this is familiar to what we're used to seeing in Batocera. Now, if we go into our ROMs folder, these are exactly the same. So much so that you can literally use, the same library for both. It doesn't quite work that way for some consoles. Like if you're using the RGS builds, then they have specific packs for certain collections that will only work on Batocera or RetroBat. But for the mass majority of games, NES, Nintendo 64, GameCube, etc. All those, they're interchangeable. They can run on either from the same similar file system. So on the left of your screen, you'll see the file system for RetroBat, and on the right side, you'll see the file system for Batocera. Very, very similar. Obviously, they look a little different because of the file manager. And then obviously in the BIOS, you can use similar BIOS as well. There may be something slightly different that I don't know about, but I've been using all of my BIOS interchangeably between RetroBat and Batocera, and I've never had any issues. More similarities about RetroBat and Batocera. If we go into our menu, right now I'm over here on RetroBat, and this is the menu setting for RetroBat on the left, and I'll have the menu for Batocera on the right. They're basically identical. The only way you can tell the difference is by looking at the RetroBat or Batocera at the bottom there with the version build. Both of these have almost the exact same settings. You can go in and download themes the exact same way. So if you were a Batocera user and you switched to RetroBat, it'd be pretty smooth. And if you were a RetroBat user and you switched to Batocera, it'd be a smooth transition. Now, when we get into the pros and cons and the differences, you're going to see, okay, depending on who you are and what you're trying to do with your machine, it'll be different. But in here, the controller mappings are the same. Your themes are the same. You can get the same themes. Themes are interchangeable. You've got everything is so similar. Like I said, you could switch. If somebody handed you the controller and you on RetroBat, you might not even realize. And until Windows has an update. But we'll get into that. That's really it for the core similarities of the two. Again, at the heart, they're damn near the same thing. They both run on emulation station. They both use RetroArch. These are the foundation of what the setup is. So of course, when the menus look this similar and all the functions are similar, it's really hard to tell the difference. But now that we got the similarities out of the way, let's go ahead and get into the pros and cons of both. We'll start with RetroBat and then we'll go into Batocera. All right, so first up, some of the pros for RetroBat. Now, one of the main pros is it runs right in Windows. So here's a RetroBat machine on your screen now. I can click my Windows key on my keyboard and boom, I'm free like a bird. I can go in here, I can go to Firefox, head right over to YouTube. I know I've got YouTube up here and I can just do anything I want. It's Windows machine. That's the pro number one. Now, this is just a heads up. It's also a con. That's the number one con as well. So it's a give and a take. But that's number one on the pros list. It runs right on Windows. For anyone who doesn't want to flash Linux, doesn't want to know anything about Linux, who doesn't know how to get into the BIOS and turn off safe boot and this and that and that and this, it runs on Windows. Second, it's really easy to install. You download, and you'll see in the install section of this video, it's really easy to install. You download something, you run it, and Bob is your uncle. And if you've never seen any of my videos, I don't give a damn if you don't have an uncle named Bob. Bob is your uncle. Now, super easy to install and way easier than Batocera. I'm not gonna lie. I don't care who you are. I don't care who you are and how easy it is. I install Batocera multiple times a day. I've done it. I've got a video on my Discord. I've done it in like 40 seconds, start to finish. But RetroBat is just easier to install. It's that simple. It's an exe. You double click it and you're off to the races. With Batocera, you're installing multiple programs. You're flashing images to hard drives and SSDs, and then you're going in your BIOS and booting. No, you're lying if you think that Batocera is easier to install than RetroBat. So that's a easy number two pro for RetroBat. Super easy to install. The number three biggest pro, in my opinion, and probably everyone else's too for RetroBat, is you've got 100% PC support for all your Windows games. Come on. You've got all of your PC games full support for Steam, Epic Games, Amazon, etc., etc., etc. You can play games online. What I'm saying is you can do all of that. You can't do a lot of that on Batocera, especially not with a lot of workarounds. And Steam is getting a lot better on Batocera, but it's still not perfect. And I know plenty of people who can't even get it installed on their machine. So you get full Windows PC game support with RetroBat, obviously, because it's running on Windows. That is the third and one of the biggest pros for RetroBat. Now, the last pro, it's not really a pro for you guys, it's just for me. And there's so many more. I don't want you to think in this video, this is the end all be all and I'm, the god of RetroBat and Batocera. I'm not. This is not that. Depending on your machine and your situation, it's going to be completely different for you, or could be exactly the same. But the biggest pro for me is that as we speak, I am recording this video. And it makes it super, super easy. It makes it so easy to be on RetroBat. It loads all of my games at full speed. It doesn't give me any trouble with lagging frame rate when I try to record. It gets along with my capture card perfectly fine. These are things that Batocera just doesn't like for me. I don't know. It might be my hardware, but Batocera does not like cooperating with me when I try to record. It doesn't like it and it gives me a hard time. It lags and it skips, etc. Those are the pros. Now we're going to get into some cons of RetroBat. The first con, like I told you before, is it runs in Windows. So with it running in Windows, you've got a whole bunch of processes going on in the background. Most of them, I don't even know what's happening. If you're an average user, these hundreds and thousands of processes, nobody knows what's going on. It's just doing stuff. So that's the biggest con for RetroBat. I can say that without a shadow of the doubt, seeing in the comments, watching other videos and talking to other people in the community. The biggest con for RetroBat is that it runs on Windows. People are trying to get away from Windows. It's easier to get viruses, especially when you get into gaming and PC gaming. It's easier to get viruses on Windows, and RetroBat runs on Windows. So that is the biggest caveat. All those background processes, the damn Windows updates, as you can see in the bottom right corner, I've got one right now. I've got a Windows update right now that I'm not doing. I'm not doing it. Another con for RetroBat is it doesn't start up automatically. Now there's things you can do to get it to start up and bypass that. The point is it's not as console-like. If you're a regular user, then you're probably just gonna leave it the way it is when you install RetroBat, and you're just gonna deal with clicking on the RetroBat icon or waiting for the delay and it starting on its own if you have it in your startup applications. That is another con. It's just less console-like. With Batocera, it's 100% made for gaming, no BS, no extra stuff, which could also be a con because sometimes you need a little extra if you need to use your machine for something. Again, we already talked about the higher risk with getting viruses or malware on Windows. You know, you're at the mercy of your own intelligence when it comes to downloading games off the internet and then running them on your Windows machine. If you download a game on Batocera and you try to run it and it has a virus, there's a good chance nothing's going to happen because that virus is probably made for Windows. So not Batocera and definitely not a wine bottle. So all right, that's going to wrap up the RetroBat pros and cons. Let's go ahead and talk about some of the Batocera pros and cons now. The first pro for Batocera is that it's not running on Windows. That's the first pro for Batocera, is that it's running on Linux. So with that pro comes some of the others on my list, including how much safer it is. Because again, if you download a virus for Windows, it's 99% chance nothing's going to happen on Batocera. It's not made for Batocera. It's made for Windows, and you're using Batocera. So along with it running on Linux, you get faster boot times sometimes. I'm not going to lie. I've had Batocera machines take all day to load, but I think that more depends on your drive. If you're using a hard drive, spinning drive, etc. Batocera runs on Linux. It's much lighter weight. That's another pro. It has less resources running in the background. Almost all of the pros for Batocera all tie into the fact that it runs on Linux. Another pro is because it's built from the ground up for gaming, when you turn it on, it boots straight into the emulation station menu. There's no OS, there's no logging screen, no nothing. No need to fumble around with anything, to skip any screens. You're good. You're good to go. In my opinion, the biggest pro for Batocera is the one that we've been talking about. It runs on Linux, which brings forth a whole bunch of optimizations and so much less overhead, so many processes running in the background that you don't have to worry about. So it's easily the best pro for Batocera. You can run it on older machines without an issue. All right, we've talked about the pros for Batocera. Now we're going to get into some cons. It's really locked down. Now it's Linux, so technically it's not locked down, but it doesn't come with a lot of libraries, resources, and tools that you need to actually make stuff happen. In order to do a lot of that, you have to install unofficial add-ons, run different sketchy, people would say, scripts. I don't say that, just to be clear, because I teach you all how to do it. But no, really, with Batocera, you've got to do all types of tricks and maneuvers and jump in and out of a hula hoop in order to get certain stuff done, like Steam. Steam is a pain. Steam might be the biggest con for Batocera. Now, I know what you're thinking. Some of you are thinking, I use Steam with Batocera perfectly fine. Well, I'm not talking about you, but there are a lot of people out there that cannot get Steam working with Batocera properly. And even when you do, you still have issues with Proton and Wine and your mom, and so it's a lot, and that's the biggest con, the compatibility with the PC games. Now I've got a bunch of videos on my channel showing the best way to handle, some of these situations, but with RetroBat, you don't even have to do any of that. So that's the biggest con, is the limited support for PC games. Another con, and probably what a lot of people will say is the biggest, is you have to wait forever for the Batocera updates. Batocera updates once in a blue moon, and until it updates, none of your emulators get any updates. Like I was saying over on RetroBat, you can update your emulators whenever you want, add custom emulators, you know, all types of things. And Batocera, you can, but you've got to jump through a lot of hoops. And updating some emulators will just break them in Batocera. That's going to be one of the biggest cons, just that you have to wait, you know, sometimes a year to get the updated emulators. And by that time, the emulators could have updated 3, 4, 5, 10 times. There's nightly emulators that are updating every night. That's going to be the biggest con. Another con that is only specific to me. Now, I gave you a pro for RetroBat that was specific to me, but I'm giving you a con for Batocera that's specific to me, is that it doesn't like my capture cards. It's so hard to record Batocera for me. And I know there's some of you out there that are like, what? I do it all the time. What's your problem, Kev? I don't know. I think it's my hardware, or maybe it's my brain. But regardless, I can't get it, you know, to work properly all the time. Obviously, sometimes I do. I put out the videos, so I'm getting something to work, you know. But it's just, it really is a hassle. The last con for Batocera is the update process. Now, the update takes forever. That's number one. That's not that big of a deal. Their servers, you know, it's getting hit. They put out a new update, you know, that's great. But the bigger issue is if you don't even have to mess with your machine. That's what's fun. And I'm not coming at the Batocera devs or anyone else, but they might make you think, oh, you added extra unofficial things to your machine. That's why when you updated it broke. Now, while they're partially correct for some things, I've talked to people who don't use unofficial add-ons, who don't mess with their machine in any way, and still, when you update, things break. So that's, you gotta be careful when you update Batocera, and that's the last con I'll give you for Batocera. All right, now that we talked about the pros and cons of RetroBat and Batocera, I'm going to go ahead and get into some of the tests that I ran, including but not limited to the install speed, the boot times, theme install times. I'm going to try to speed this up because I don't want this video to be too long, but I just want you to get a good understanding of the differences and similarities of Batocera and RetroBat and which one might be better for you. All right, so here I am on my Windows desktop. Now, this isn't a install guide at all. In the background, what you're seeing is me running through and installing RetroBat. Now, I tried to skip and cut all the load times out of the way so you could see the process. But as you can see, I Googled RetroBat. Now I'm at their GitHub, and now I'm downloading the exe. Obviously, like I said, I'll skip this. I'll go ahead and run that exe. Again, like I was telling you earlier in the video, it's super easy to install RetroBat. It's super easy. It's only a few steps. So now I'm going in here. Now that I've ran the exe, we're running through the installer, and in a second we'll be done. Again, I did skip the load times, but in total, it took about 9 minutes to install and to get to the RetroBat main screen, or what we know as the emulation station main menu. So it took about 9 minutes for RetroBat. Here in a second, we'll go ahead and move on to Batocera, and we'll check the time on that. Now again, this is not an install guide for Batocera. This is just showing you all of the steps that I had to go through. There's going to be a lot of cuts and skips because, again, not an install video. But as you can see, I'm going to go up in here and I'm going to Google Batocera, and I'm going to go to their website, download the image. I make it seem and sound easy because I'm just saying it, and the video's going by so fast on your screen. But as you can see, now I'm downloading a second program. If you remember from the RetroBat install just a second ago, I only downloaded one program, but here we are already downloading 2 things. Again, I skipped that so you didn't have to wait. But now that I have my 2 programs, because one wasn't enough, I'm going to go ahead and flash Batocera by opening up Balena Etcher. I'm in here choosing my image. You can already tell the difference in the install. I've already done way more clicks than in that last little clip of installing RetroBat. So I skipped it again. We had to wait probably about 5 minutes to flash Batocera. Now I'm booted into the BIOS. As you can see, it's just, and this is what scares people the most, because I have to go in and change the priority order to boot from the external drive so it doesn't go into Windows. Now here you see me in here. You got to turn off secure boot sometimes, most of the time, all the time. It's not the same as installing RetroBat. And you can't blame someone if they want to install RetroBat. Here we go. We're fast forwarding. It's gonna do its thing. Yeah, I fast forwarded. And here we are on the Batocera main screen. That took about 20 minutes from start to finish. Still not that bad. Still pretty quick. But at the end of the day, RetroBat does get the win for faster install times at about 9 minutes versus Batocera at about 20. Now we're going to get into the boot time test. So this is all going to be in real time. I didn't speed these up. So if you want to fast forward, you can. I just wanted to show you in real time how long it takes. This is, as you can see, this is RetroBat here. And this is with no modifications to the system. So you can see it still goes to the loading login screen. It still goes into the Windows desktop. And as you can see, we're just waiting because the whatever I did to make RetroBat run, it's taking its sweet ass time. So, yeah, like I said, I didn't want to cut this out because I wanted you to see the uncut and raw load times for RetroBat and Batocera. All right, that took about 1:07 from machine off to on. Let's head over to Batocera and we'll see how long that takes. Now, surprisingly, the Batocera boot times were basically the same as in RetroBat. They were a little slower, so it took about 1:20, 1:30 for Batocera to load up, which honestly is a pretty long time. I'm gonna blame my drive on this one. But it took about 1:20 to get started, while RetroBat took about a minute. So not much time difference, but still, both of those are fairly long. Now, as you saw in the Windows boot time, that booted pretty quickly, but then proceeded to take another forever to boot into RetroBat. All right, we're going to go ahead and test the download speed of the themes in the themes downloader in RetroBat, because I have noticed a significant difference in the download speed between the RetroBat themes downloader and the Batocera themes downloader. I don't know what that's about because they're the same themes. And probably, I mean, they're coming from the same place, I have to assume, but let's go ahead and install this now, and I'll fast forward so that you don't have to wait. All right, so the HyperBat theme just finished installing in RetroBat. We'll go ahead and switch to that now so we can check it out and show you, it did finish installing. It took about 2.5 minutes, which honestly is a little bit slow. On my main machine, it takes like 45 seconds. So, but that 2.5 minutes, I bet you, is nothing compared to what we're going to see when we go into Batocera. So let's remove this welcome message so you can see the HyperBat theme very quickly. There it is. Boom, pow, bang, bam. Bob's your uncle. Let's go ahead and head over to Batocera and we'll test out and see how long it takes to download this exact theme over there. All right, we're over here on Batocera. We're going to do the same thing. We're connected to the same network. We are on the same computer. The only difference is we're in Batocera now. So, like I told you guys before, the RetroBat theme took about 2.5 minutes to install. So now we're going to go in and install HyperBat on Batocera. And I'll start the install process. And I'll speed it up so that you don't have to wait. And I'll be back when it's finished. All right, we have a major upset. I cannot believe what I'm about to say, but Batocera just downloaded the HyperBat theme in like 40 seconds. It did it in like 40 seconds. It actually installed the HyperBat theme just about as fast as it does on my main rig. I can't believe it that Batocera gets the point for this. I don't know, RetroBat had a hiccup this morning. It took about 2 minutes, 30 seconds, but with Batocera, it might be the 42. It's got to be the V42 update because I flash Batocera multiple times a day. So I know some of the long wait times that I've had to wait. So it's gotta be V42, but enough of me rambling. Batocera comes in with the upset win on the theme download speed. So that's a point to Batocera. You've listened to me yap and run my mouth for over 20 minutes. So let's go ahead and break down really simple which one's better. So if you have an old machine that you're not going to be playing new AAA PC games on, you might as well run Batocera. You can save some electricity. You can run games a little quicker in some instances, depending on how bad the computer is. And overall, you'll just have a great experience overall on Batocera. If you've got a weaker or older computer, that's the way to go. Now, if you have a badass gaming PC, custom rig with nice dedicated GPU, I can't recommend Batocera for that type of machine because you've got all that horsepower. You can do so much. Like I said, for me, I'm editing videos, I'm playing games retro, playing games modern, PC games AAA. You're able to do it all with RetroBat Windows. So shout out to all the people with really nice gaming rigs that are running Linux. I know that there's ways around it, but shout out to you. You have my respect. But again, for older PCs, Batocera. For newer and more capable computers, I recommend RetroBat. Some people are going to be upset about that, but it's just, you get so much functionality, and yeah, you have Windows breathing down your neck, but you can actually use your computer and get so much out of it that Windows is in the background getting some too. Anyways, that's going to wrap up today's video. If you like what you saw, give me a like. If you really like what you saw, subscribe. Come on. Now that I've told you the pros and cons and similarities of RetroBat and Batocera, let me know in the comments below, which one do you think is better? But all right, I'll catch you in the next video.